Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to talk to Natasha Nuhanovic today about her book, The Boy's Marble. I'm going to just see if I can find her and then we will get started. Yay! Hi, how are you? I can't hear you very well.
Oh, no? Okay.
Oh, there, that's better. That
Yeah, okay. I
was
turned
just
up the volume.
instant. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm looking forward to this.
Good.
It's my first Instagram live event.
It's always, almost every time I come on here, I honestly feel like it's a miracle when it works. Like
Yeah,
just this like deep sigh of relief when it works.
yes, I feel. Thanks for making me feel less, you know, not so technology savvy
Yes.
yet.
Oh no, that's I can make everybody feel great about their technology skills, believe me.
Oh,
Um, I am so excited to talk to you about this novel, your debut. Um, before we get started, everybody, I'm just going to sort of share my perspective on the novel, my own little blurb, and then Natasha is going to read the first 30 lines of the book. Is that okay?
yes.
Yes.
Looking.
And then we're going to talk about writing. We're going to talk about the complications of putting an incredible book like this together and the challenges of making those 30 lines as incredible as they were, but also for every other reader to be drawn into the book. So The Boy's Marble was published by Guernica Editions, one of my favorite independent publishers. The Boy's Marble is an intimate and intricate novel about war, specifically about an unnamed woman, a narrator, her traumatic childhood experiences during the siege of Sarajevo. The woman sees a man who she thinks might be her childhood friend, the boy with the marbles, who did not show up to a meeting before she and her family escaped to Canada. She is thrown back to the past in all its trauma and all of the memories, and she is both the child in Sarajevo and a woman sitting at a cafe in Montreal. The Boy's Marble is a lyrical novel, not for the faint of heart, that takes the reader on a visually stunning and beautifully complicated journey through memory, hope, love, and loss.
Oh, that was a beautiful summary.
It was a beautiful book. And I'm excited to hear you read the first 30 lines. I want to talk about that section too, that sort of prologue section.
Wonderful. All right, so I guess I can read now.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I'm holding the phone with one hand and reading with the other. 13,952 people, maybe more. It is only fitting we met on February 29th, a day that does not exist for most of the time. There have been only 8 of those in my lifetime. I don't know that the first 2 even count, because I barely remember those. That leaves me with 6. Even though there aren't very many in competition, I hope you will take it as a compliment that my second favorite is the one on which we met. My favorite one remains February 29th, 1996, the end of the Sarajevo siege. The beginning came on April 5th, 1992, with the beginning of spring. I guess that year life began to bloom in a very different way. The beginning exists every year and outnumbers the days marking the end. Sometimes I'm afraid of that. It won't be long. It will be over soon, most of us thought. The siege lasted for 1,425 days. This day is the last one. Only today left. Only today left. I wonder who will arrive first, you or your letter. One more night of sleeping until I see you again. This is the last sentence you wrote to me. When I read it, I started liking you just a little bit more, for reasons I hope you don't find too entirely strange. During the war, Many people wrote a sentence just like that. If you knew that this was what the boy said to me the last time I saw him, you might understand why I want to see you again without even knowing who you really are. I'm not even fully sure I'm ready to find out. The words in your sentence returned to me in the voice of the boy. An innocent sound. An innocent sound swerves through the dark air, rustles. One more night of sleeping until I see you again. The boy's sentence echoes in my mind one more time. This is what he said before he turned around. His hair curled up at his collar toward the stars, and then he left. I wonder if at least one of the stars could see the exact wave of his hair, because your hair curls up like that too. I hope at least one star could see that far. Maybe it could tell me then if your hair moves precisely the same.
Thank you so much. That opening is just incredible to me. It immediately tells the reader what to expect from the voice, from the perspective, from the subject matter. But before the end of that first section, which I kind of see as a prologue, but you can speak to that more. Before the end of that first section, my first feeling was, how impossible was it to write about war, the trauma of war, with such emotion, with an authentic voice? How was that experience for you?
Oh, it was um like my for some reason my mom's comments come to mind. She was like, oh, you know, it was obviously a healing process for me too, to go through that. And as I was writing, um, I memories even that I thought I had, I didn't even thought I still have, kind of resurfaced. I guess that's part of the defense mechanism, I guess, when we live through something like that. But I, 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 as I was writing, I realized I was less, you can never be over it or over anything like that happens like that. But I started feeling all those things all over again. And then I felt I could like stay with them and put them inside like a framework of a story, obviously. And through that somehow, like at least try to give meaning to
The experience.
experience of such horrible thing. Like it has no, it's just mad, like the complete bottom of what the human being is capable of.
Yeah. It's incredible. And I think the most powerful for me as a reader to experience was the voice. It is this dreamlike, I don't want to call it stream of consciousness, because that almost feels like it's not, it wasn't deliberately laid out the way that it is, but it's very dreamy, and it's, first person present, but also very slow and rhythmic. And I wanted to talk about that. Did you know right off the bat that it was going to be first person? Because I think that's why I had that kind of protective, oh my gosh, this must have been so difficult to write, because it was in the first person.
I guess it's interesting how the novel even came about. Like I was always writing it from first person viewpoint, but the way that the book even sort of emerged as a novel, I was like carrying my notebook around town, Montreal, and with my pencil. And I was going through these disorienting times, having moved to the city. and I just started like almost writing thoughts into my notebook
Mm-hmm.
without having a concept of, okay, I'm sitting down now to write a novel, and which kind of voice, what's the point of view. um, but then as I was writing in this I perspective, not really fully having consciously decided this will be a novel, I think then it just became at some point it was obvious to me, oh my goodness, this is like becoming an actual
Story.
story and novel. And then I more consciously laid out other elements. But I think the perspective of the I. So I guess the answer to your question is yes and no. Yes, because it was always written in this point of view, but I already started the point of view before I knew that this would become a novel.
Right, right. And that dreamlike voice, that where there's just this constant tension and conflict between the past and the present, and the reader is questioning where we are, and what the narrator is experiencing in that actual present moment. um, was that again just a voice that came from your natural, just sitting down and scrawling the notes and filling it out, that was just there?
It came naturally. Like uh, I never had, like, even for the whole book, I think about a third or midway through, I started deciding other things more consciously.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what became evident pretty early on is that I started writing memory, like things about Montreal and my present, and then the flashbacks of, like, set of Bosnia and the landscape there kept returning and coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the more I went like into this deeper or like inner, even like the little girl me, I guess there's the narrator and there's me as a person, and it's like
Yeah.
a blend of fiction and real life experience. But I think what organically happened is the flashbacks, and then I built on the story of like the few plot line threads that keep
Mm-hmm.
weaving through. But
Yeah.
what organically happened is that these, like, the present would kind of go back into the past as I focused on certain um, like details of the Montreal landscape, let's say. And then I kind of just kept having these like flashbacks of Bosnia and the war,
Yeah.
or details that are not related to the war, depending on the
The section. Yeah.
yeah.
And the structure is also very, I mean, I don't, interesting seems like a throwaway word, but they're at, I would turn a page and see these long paragraphs ahead of me, and it was almost like visually, as a reader, seeing those long paragraphs, it was almost like I needed to brace myself for what the narrator was going to give to me in those long paragraphs. And then we would get these bursts of short paragraphs, and which would be a reprieve as a reader. And was that conscious? Was that, did you know in those moments you wanted to kind of trap the reader in
Yeah, in a way, like I wanted to um, make the reader feel, or have the reader go through the emotional state and mental state that someone who has gone through that experience is going through. So the form of the paragraphs was pretty consciously decided. And as you know, there's like no like dialogues
Mhm.
or quotation marks. And like as you said, you open the book and all you see is like these chunks of like blocks, and no, it can be yeah, it can feel trapping, like these boxes. At the same time, they're like fragments.
Hmm.
So that was pretty, yeah, mimicking also, yeah, just the feeling of fragmentation and being kind of trapped and overwhelmed
Yeah.
at the same time, and
Yeah.
processing.
Exactly. And that there's a lot of visual symbolism which relate to also that experience of being overwhelmed. Like there's a lot of rain, there's a lot of snow, and that, conflict of where the character is, where the narrator is, comes alive again. Um, without asking if any of these are personally related, I wanted to talk to you about some of the really powerful, like helium balloon, I thought was, and it being reflecting the moon, I thought was just a very powerful image. Um, but were all of these, and the flowers, of course, the Sarajevo flowers, there's a lot that were obvious to me as a reader, but were these visual images images that popped up in your own head as a writer, or were they just a sort of creative experience in writing?
A lot of the objects or images, like the helium balloon or the flowers or other, like even the stray dog, or like they're actual objects that I remember that are real. I may have placed them in an imagined scene
Yeah.
or context, or sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's like an exact, almost, well, exact as is it's in my memory, like replication of what I actually remember. Like the flowers are real, like the
Hmm.
Junction flowers that open at night and close during the day, or um, like for some reason they're very prevalent in my memory
Hmm.
of leaving during the war. And I just somehow like have these few, some are made up, some objects, but like 80, I don't know, I can't tell a
Yeah, that, yeah.
percentage, but a lot of them are like a memory, visual memory that has kind of like followed me through my uh I guess growing up. Or
Yeah.
some are invented, like, or have existed but are placed within a different situation to heighten the plot and make the story make more sense.
Hmm. And they show up like at one point, I think about halfway through, I felt as though these images were kind of coming the across me as a reader as I was experience it like a film, like it was playing in the background of what was happening to the narrator. It was powerful for me. Every time those visual moments came, it was just like, oh my gosh,
No, I'm happy to hear that.
great.
It like
Yeah.
got a,
And God, I want to talk about God because it's hard to believe that there's funny in this book, but the image of God and this comical figure, and again, it's probably obvious why he's there. It was a religious war, and uh, again, an unnecessary conflict between religions. But how did God turn up? How did this comical figure with the suit, like just everything about him was just so great? How did that character show
I
up?
I guess like as a child, like even though all this horrible stuff is happening around you, and as a child you absorb it all in a way, but I guess I also wanted the sort of playful, the playful innocent uh, part of the imaginative child's way of seeing the world to come through in a way. And it's like I remember like even back then when like the war started and during it, like as a kid you still try to somehow, oh, you still, like, you obviously know that this horrible stuff is happening
Hmm.
outside, but somehow like you still try to turn or like to go on with playful situations, or like you make up depending on the day, or
Hmm.
sometimes you try and turn it into like a more playful, innocent,
Hopeful. Yeah.
hopeful voice, rather than, I don't know, or like as a way of escaping, I guess, escaping the horrors going on around you.
Yeah, or that there's like a natural human instinct to kind of box things up and have them, live in this compartment over here while you're living joy, while you're living fun, while you're trying to smile, right?
Right.
Knowing you're going to be thrown back in that box at some point during the day again against your will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And maybe then on another layer, like on that one layer, it was trying to get the playful and innocent across, and then like of the young narrator, like the little girl narrator, but as like the more conscious or grown up or like narrator outside of that girl's mind, like girl's child's point of view.
Yeah.
I guess the commentary of the God was also, because like you said, the war was like partially a religious war, or framed that war like, but in a way, like the book like humanizes or like makes God into not like neither Christian nor Muslim nor
Yeah.
anything, just an entity that's like trying to, instead of like putting this into these separate boxes as a war does, like, oh, these are like, uh, like rather than trying to separate into different religions or different anything, just trying to bring back the what makes us all human, I guess. And
Yeah.
that was another element of trying to make God like, just flawed and human, and
Yeah, and
like
I
it
loved.
so funny.
Yeah, well, he's funny, and at one point, I think I can't remember. I should have bookmark it where the narrator says something like, you're not at all helpful, or
Yeah,
like, what's your, why are you here, and yeah, I thought it was good.
right. Like you're just useless and like, I don't know, drunk all the time or something. I
Yeah,
forgot how to write, or I don't know.
yeah, exactly. Like, why are people wasting their time talking to you? Um, So the first section, I wanted to talk specifically. We talked about the paragraphs and the long paragraphs, but I wanted to talk to you about the actual sections, because I didn't um, I didn't feel at the end, as a reader who is a writer, that I really, um, and I guess it doesn't really matter. I don't need to understand why it's in 5 sections that have, names: 10 years, 3 weeks, 3 days, and the first section, 13,952 people. But how did that come to be? How did that specific structure?
I guess like to kind of also go along with the form of the uh, paragraphs and the fragments and the pieces, like I guess partially what I wanted to achieve with this kind of like numbering, and then within the like 3 years and then 10 months and yeah, 3 years, 10 months, 3 weeks, 3 days. In the threes you have like
Three,
the
three,
1, 2, 3 and
one,
1, 2, 3, because like the feeling of the war, I guess it's the counting. Like I just as a kid remember, I don't know, counting everything, like counting the days, or everyone would, you know, say, uh, or feel like the time, or like I guess on the one hand there's the counting, but
Mhm.
then there's time where everything happens at the same time, and it's kind of like in contrast, like the counting where you have like trying to, you know, delineate time and have it be specific, whereas then the story itself is kind of everything is happening at the same time,
Mhm.
but then the counting during the war, like the counting of the days or the counting of the people, or like how many people died or how many days are left or how many days the wars has already lasted. Or like just I remember hearing shots like as a kid, and it's like I don't know, like counting, not that I was counting the shots
Yeah.
consciously, but it's like somehow in your head I remember all this counting. And I guess as part of the forum I wanted to um, like have the counting be as part of this form. I don't know if this makes sense, and because there's multiple layers. One of them, I guess, being the one I mentioned, where it's like almost the opposite of what this, like the story being kind of like this fluid time where nothing can be contained, and
Yeah.
then at the same time there are these containers in the structure of the, let's say, chapters, if one can call them I guess they're chapters.
Mm-hmm.
And then the boxes itself are kind of like containers. I call them boxes, but what I mean is paragraphs.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that speaks to what you were just saying about that. It just triggered in me this idea of, counting days as though, once one day has been counted, it can no longer exist, right? Like it's going to be over there and not a part of the present day anymore. And that tomorrow is not going to be part of the present day. That's a powerful way of imagining how the novel moves through time.
Right, and that too. And
Yeah.
then, like, on the level of people, I don't know, it's because people start disappearing like one by one, and you don't know if they're dead or they just left or escaped. And it's like, I remember kind of seeing less, and like, as a kid, I started like putting, how people you put those lines like one,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, and then 5 like this, and I just remember drawing them on like pieces of paper. I don't even know what they were referring to at the time, but I have it in my memory as like counting as a
Hmm.
little girl. So
Yeah.
I guess it's one of, at least for me, maybe like it was one of the, the counting is just very
A way it's like a way of surviving, right? Like it's just another mechanism, another survival mechanism.
yeah, except you don't know when it ends, like
Right.
like in a prison sentence, and then okay, this is how much left. You're just like counting into eternity. You
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Like it's incredible. We only have a couple of minutes left, but I wanted to talk to you about Stray Dog Embassy, your collection of poetry, and I wanted to talk to you about your film. I only saw the trailer of it, the feature dramatic documentary starring your grandparents, which I think is both beautiful and heartbreaking. I hope that I can see it someday. But I wanted to talk to you before we go about creation and how you how you create, how you decide you're going to spend time on poetry, how you decide you're going to invest time in making this film, and then how you're going to write this beautiful novel.
Yeah, I guess like similarly as your first question, I kind of just let things not, well, naturally it's not like that. I just let things emerge for a certain period of time. Like even now, let's say I'm just brainstorming the next work, but I'm not confining it into anything yet. Like
Mhm.
I kind of just try to, you know,
See how it emerges.
yeah, see how it emerges or what emerges before I at some point you have to pick, like you have to make a more conscious decision, otherwise you're just like all over the place all the time. I guess it's just finding that moment of when is now the moment that this is like what my soul or being really wants to
Create.
have come out or create, because that's like what makes you, me at least, what makes me have the passion and the discipline or focus to see it through to the finish line, because then it comes more organically, I guess. Like, there's still days you have to decide, okay, I'm still gonna
like free write or free create, but then days that you have to sit down and actually do the work.
yeah, even if you don't feel like it, you just do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I try not to confine anything too early on, and then let it be, and then like almost let it pick itself, and then I realize what it is, and then make more of a structure around it, rather than put the structure too soon and then just kill it before it even
Yeah.
reached.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Thank you so much for joining us. This book, I cannot tell you, for writers out there who want to be challenged emotionally, literarily, in any way, this is an incredible book to read, and purchase for anybody that you love. You can find out more about Natasha on her website, natashanuhanovic.com. And you can buy a copy of Boys Marvel from GuernicaEditions.com. And that's it.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for reading my book and having such a lovely uh, commentary and perspective on it.
Yeah,
Really
no,
appreciate
thank
it.
no, thank you so much for giving this to me, or allowing me to read this and to talk to you about it. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who stayed and joined us for this event. Have a
Yeah.
great
Bye.
day.
Thank you, everybody. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.